Natural disasters are occurring at an increasing rate and at larger scales in the recent decades. In this video, we're going to take a look at the 10 biggest financial natural disasters in the United States. These numbers are, of course, guided estimates and have been adjusted for inflation, and when totaled up, equate to over $800 billion. Well, let's get to it. Starting us off is Hurricane Ike, which is the weakest hurricane on this list, and hit the Texas shoreline in 2008 as a Category 2. What it lacked in strength, it made up for in size, and its winds ranged over 400 miles long. It hit Texas and Louisiana the hardest, causing almost $40 billion in damages, a lot of which was in the oil and gas sector. The Great Midwest Flood of 1993 comes in at number 9. And it may be the most surprising on the list. It is the largest and most destructive flood in America's history and caused both the Mississippi and Missouri River to overflow, two of the biggest a part of the economy. Major bridges and highways were inaccessible, and barge traffic was shut down for over 2 months. The flood ultimately destroyed 50,000 homes, flooded airports along with 20 million acres of farmland, and finished up with over $40 billion in damages. Another rare one on the list is the major drought and heat that took place in 1988, specifically in the Midwest. The agriculture industry was absolutely destroyed, with 11 states claiming every county as a disaster area. And it took over a decade for some of those places to fully recover. Crops failed, wildfires spread, and around 5,000 deaths are given credit to the extreme heat that summer. The total damages racked up to $48 billion. Hurricane Andrew is number 7, which hit the Florida coast in 1992 as one of the few to make landfall on U.S. soil as a Category 5. But what made this disaster worse was the fact that it appeared as though it was going to die off in the Gulf, but then gained incredible strength in just 36 hours. There were not many areas in South Florida that were able to escape devastation, and the winds were the most damaging part. All in all, Hurricane Andrew racked up costs of $54 billion. 25 years after Andrew, Hurricane Irma hit Florida in 2017, just after being downgraded to a Category 4. It maintained 185 mile-per-hour winds for the longest in satellite observation history, 37 hours straight. 90% of the buildings in the Florida Keys were destroyed or heavily damaged, and it actually hit the Virgin Islands as a Category 5. Flooding occurred across Florida and the South Carolina coastlines, and the damage came out to $54 billion. The youngest on the list kicks off the top 5. Hurricane Ida started out passing through Cuba before making its way to Louisiana in 2021 as a strong Category 4 hurricane. It brought heavy winds, rains, floods, and even tornadoes across the southeast and northeast parts of the country. Over 1 million people lost power, some for multiple weeks. Infrastructure damage occurred all across the country, and 95% of the Gulf oil production was shut down. The town of Grand Isle, Louisiana was declared uninhabitable after the levees broke and 100% of the structures were damaged. Number 5 on the list came in with $75 billion in damages. Superstorm Sandy sits at the number 4 spot, which is interesting since it was downgraded from a hurricane before hitting the Northeast in the fall of 2012. It had tremendous size and hit during high tide, which made the storm surge even worse. New York and New Jersey were hit the hardest, but Sandy carried rain and snow all the way through the Appalachian Mountains. In New York, the Brooklyn subway was completely flooded with some damages remaining today, and the stock exchange also had to close for 2 days. This brings Superstorm Sandy to a total of $80 billion in damages. 2017 was an infamous year for hurricanes, and we are about to see why. The top three begins with Hurricane Maria, who spared majority of the mainland United States but demolished the Caribbean as a Category 5. It nearly wiped out all of Puerto Rico's energy infrastructure, transportation, communication, and agriculture, leaving them nearly helpless for several months. It is estimated that the hurricane caused the death of over 3,000 people, which makes it the deadliest Atlantic hurricane of the 21st century. What were the total damages? Just north of $100 billion. At the time Maria hit, Texas and the surrounding areas were still working on cleanup from the month before, when Hurricane Harvey struck land as a Category 4. The uniqueness of this storm was that it was stalled over land for many days, bringing tremendous amounts of rains and flooding to the area. Approximately 30 to 60 inches of rain fell in many different places, making this the most significant tropical cyclone rainfall event in U.S. history. It also led to the displacement of 30,000 people and destruction of over 200,000 houses and buildings. The final tally of costs was reached at over $140 billion. Well, there can only be one number one, and ours has been sitting here for almost 20 years. Hurricane Katrina hit the Southeast in 2005 as a Category 3, but had reached the intensity of a Category 5 out in the Gulf. It hit all along the coast of many states, and the storm surge overtook many seawalls and levees. New Orleans was the worst affected, with 80% of the city being underwater within the first few days. The city's population still has not returned to pre-Katrina levels. The most catastrophic natural disaster in U.S. history caused over $180 billion in damages. Here's a graph of the top 10 disasters. And here's to hoping that we may be spared from a major disaster this year. As a bonus, here is one final disaster. On a January morning in 1994, the San Fernando Valley was hit with a magnitude 6.7 earthquake. Buildings, apartments, freeways, and parking lots all collapsed across the area. This resulted in thousands of injuries and over 50 deaths. Thankfully, the event happened early on a holiday, or the deaths would have been much higher. It also led to major changes in building and safety codes, as well as insurance coverage. The most dangerous earthquake in America's history caused almost $30 billion in damages. And now you know. I hope you enjoyed the video, and now go enjoy the rest of your day. Please feel free to give me some feedback on the video, and constructive criticism is appreciated, along with a like and subscribe if you are feeling generous. In the next video, we will be taking a look at the top 10 financial natural disasters across the world. I'll see you there.